Okay, so picture this. It's Sunday night, prime time.
Right.
You've got the lights just blazing at Madison Square Garden. The Lakers are in town to play the Knicks.
Yeah.
I mean, it is arguably the most classic matchup in like the history of the NBA.
Oh, absolutely. It's the Mecca for a reason.
Yeah.
There's an electricity in that building when the stars are there. You can feel it right through the screen.
Exactly. But here's the thing. There was something just fundamentally different about this broadcast. Something that had the internet buzzing. And for once, the biggest story wasn't just about LeBron's stat line or, the Knicks' playoff chances. The story was the person holding the microphone.
That's right. We are talking about Caitlyn Clark, but not on the court, not dropping threes. She was in the booth breaking down the action.
It feels like she is just everywhere these days.
Everywhere.
But today, we're not just talking about her celebrity. We are doing a deep dive into this really fascinating media analysis from the channel Zylar. We're going to look at her broadcast debut for NBC, break down the viewership numbers, which, spoiler alert, are huge, and, analyze how she actually did as a pundit.
But we can't just stop there, because the source material brings up a really crucial and, frankly, a somewhat alarming counter-narrative.
Okay.
Because while Clark is just soaring, breaking records for NBC, there are some pretty serious warning signs flashing somewhere else in women's basketball.
Yeah, we're going to get into that contrast. And honestly, it is a bit startling. You've got these record highs and some really scary lows happening at the exact same time. So the mission for today is this. We need to unpack how much influence one single player actually has. Is this just the Caitlyn Clark effect lifting all boats, or is something, more complex and maybe more fragile going on?
That's the million-dollar question, right? We have to separate the hype from the cold, hard data.
Okay, so let's start with the headline numbers, because they are just staggering.
Sure.
NBC airs this Sunday night basketball doubleheader. Lakers-Knicks.
Yeah.
Now, normally a regular season NBA game, viewership can be, a bit of a roller coaster. What do we see here?
We saw a powerhouse. According to the data, the game averaged about 4.5 million viewers.
Wow.
Now, to be clear, that's combining the audience from the main NBC broadcast and the Telemundo simulcast.
4.5 million, just to ground that for you listening. That is a massive number for a regular season game.
It's not a playoff game.
No, not the finals. It's just a Sunday in February.
It's huge. And to put that into historical context, this was the most watched Sunday night regular season NBA game since 2002.
Wait, 2002? I was in elementary school. That is over 2 decades ago.
Exactly. I mean, think about the media world in 2002. No streaming, no social media.
Right.
Appointment television was everything. And we haven't seen numbers like this on a Sunday since then.
That is just wild.
And we do have to add the fine print. The statistic excludes Christmas Day games, which are their own thing. The TV's just on in the background for those. But for a standard regular season Sunday, numbers we haven't seen in 20 years.
So naturally, the internet sees the massive spike, and just goes, boom, that's Caitlyn Clark. She showed up, ratings doubled.
And that is the tempting narrative, right? It's clean, it's simple, it fits the headline. But this is where we have to, put on our analyst hats. The Zylar breakdown makes a really critical point.
Which is?
You cannot give Caitlyn Clark 100% of the credit for those 4.5 million viewers. If you do that, you're ignoring the whole ecosystem, and frankly, it's just bad data analysis.
Okay, so play devil's advocate. If she's the shiny new piece in the puzzle, why doesn't she get the bulk of the credit? What else is going on?
Well, there are two other massive factors at play here. First, just the platform itself. The NBA hasn't had a regular Sunday night national broadcast on NBC for years.
Oh, that's true. Sunday night is NFL territory, or, HBO. The NBA on NBC, that brings back a lot of nostalgia. You hear that music, you see the logo.
Precisely. There's a scarcity factor. It's a novelty. People aren't used to seeing it. So hearing that music ramble rock, seeing that production, there's a natural curiosity there. No matter who's calling the game, it feels like an event again.
Right. It feels like a moment. That makes total sense. But you said there was a second factor.
The second factor is the man on the court, the king himself.
LeBron James.
LeBron. We can't forget about him. He's still the face of the league in so many ways.
Right.
And the analysis brings up this really poignant idea that drove a lot of hardcore fans to tune in. This might have been one of the last times LeBron James ever plays at Madison Square Garden.
Oof. When you put it that way.
Yeah.
The clock is definitely ticking.
There's a real chance of that. Now, the source notes they still think he probably plays another year, but just the possibility, that alone drives viewership. Fans don't want to miss history.
The FOMO. fear of missing out.
Absolutely. If this was the last time LeBron laced them up at the Mecca, you had to be watching.
So you've got this perfect storm. You've got the return of Sunday night games on a huge network, bringing the nostalgia. You've got the potential farewell tour for the greatest score ever. And then you add Caitlyn Clark to the mix.
Correct. And the source argues that, look, Clark isn't the sole reason, but she was a major multiplier. She wasn't just a passenger. She was helping drive the bus. It's a cocktail of interest, but she was a very, very potent ingredient.
It's so interesting because usually the announcers are just background noise, you know?
Mm-hmm.
You don't tune in for the color commentator. You tune in for the game. But here, she was the attraction.
She was the hook for a whole demographic that maybe doesn't care about LeBron or the Knicks. She brought in eyes that wouldn't normally be there.
So the numbers were great. We've established that.
Mm-hmm.
But numbers are one thing. Execution is another. We have seen great athletes try to move into the broadcast booth. And then I can name names.
We all know.
We all know. They're legends on the court. And then they get on the mic. And it's rough. It's awkward.
It's a completely different skill set. It's not just about knowing basketball. You have to be concise, you have to be articulate, and you're doing it live with a producer yelling in your ear. It's a high-wire act.
Exactly. So how did she actually do? Was this just a stunt? Did she freeze?
That was the big question going in, right? Was this a celebrity cameo to pop a rating? But according to the NBC execs and the consensus from the analysis, it was the real deal.
What's the verdict?
Rich Cardell, he's a key executive at NBC Sports, he publicly praised her debut. And he didn't just give the standard, she was great PR line. He was specific.
Okay, what did he point to? Because usually they just say, we're thrilled and move on.
He said she handled the role with ease. He highlighted her basketball IQ, which we all know she has, but more importantly, her ability to translate that IQ into clear, digestible analysis for the viewer. He said she was prepared.
And that's the key, isn't it? The prep work. You can't just wing it.
You can't. Viewers can smell it a mile away if you haven't done the homework. And he said she was comfortable. I mean, think about that pressure. Her debut, MSG, 4.5 million people watching. And she looked like she belonged there.
That's wild. Most people would be sweating through their suits. It just speaks to that elite athlete mindset. Mm-hmm. The bigger the stage, the calmer they get.
And it seems like NBC is all in. They've already confirmed she'll be back later in the season for another Knicks game in March.
Oh, so this wasn't just a one-and-done thing?
Definitely not. The source points out that while no expanded role is official yet, the tone of the comments suggests this is genuine interest. It wasn't just polite praise. They see a future here, a potential franchise talent for the booth, not just the court.
And honestly, why wouldn't they? I mean, look at the social media reaction. That's almost as important as the TV ratings these days. If you're not trending, did it even happen?
That is the social proof the analysis talks about.
Okay.
And this detail to me is fascinating. So she's sitting there on the panel. Who's she sitting next to? NBA Hall of Famers, All-Stars, legends of the game.
Guys with rings, MVPs, the whole 9 yards. Faces on the Mount Rushmore of basketball.
And yet, who was trending on social media?
Let me guess. It wasn't the retired guys.
It was Caitlyn Clark. Not the Hall of Famers, not even LeBron initially. It was Clark. And the source argues that that specific detail tells you, quote, everything you need to know about where attention is flowing.
It's the attention economy in real time. You can have the legacy, you can have the resume, but do you have the eyes?
Yeah.
And right now she captures the eyes like almost no one else in sports.
She absolutely does. NBC made a very, very smart business decision here. They capitalized on where the current gravity of the sport is.
And here's where we have to pivot, because this is a deep dive, right? And we need the whole picture. Gravity can be a tricky thing. Because while Caitlyn is trending and NBC is celebrating 4.5 million viewers, there's another story in women's basketball that is, well, the source calls it uncomfortable.
Yeah, this is the reality check. And it's a sharp one. It really complicates that everything is awesome narrative.
We're talking about Unrivaled.
Right. For those listening who might not know, Unrivaled is a new alternative women's basketball league. It's a 3-on-3 format played in the offseason, and it features some of the best players in the world.
Sounds great on paper.
It does. It's supposed to be this premium new product to keep fans engaged, star-studded, big investment, high production value.
But the numbers, they're telling a very different story from what we just talked about. How bad is it?
According to the analysis, Unrivaled's viewership is down 44% year over year.
44%. Whoa. That is not a dip. That's a crater.
Exactly. The analysis calls it a serious drop, and it's especially scary when you look at the wider context, because women's basketball in general is booming. It's growing everywhere.
Right. I feel like every week there's a new viewership record being broken in college or the WNBA. So why is this one thing down so much?
You're right. Everything else is up. The source mentions the Oklahoma versus Texas college game that pulled over 1 million viewers. So you have college games doing huge numbers, Caitlyn Clark helping draw 4.5 million, and then Unrivaled is dropping by almost half.
That is a massive disconnect. So it's not that nobody is watching women's basketball.
Yeah.
People are watching. They're just not watching that.
Precisely. And this leads to the source's main theory about the Caitlyn Clark effect. It's a bit more complex than people think. The usual story is just Caitlyn makes everything popular.
But the data is saying otherwise. It's not a magic wand.
The data suggests she raises the tide, yes. She lifts attention. But, and this is the crucial part, her gravity is specific. She plays in the WNBA. Her whole narrative is anchored there.
So she lifts the boat she's standing in, but not every single boat in the ocean.
That is a great way to put it. The source explicitly warns if the WNBA disappears, everything built around it eventually collapses too. The inverse seems to be true for Clark. If she's not directly involved, that spillover effect isn't nearly as strong as we thought.
Wait, unpack that a little. Why would Unrivaled struggle so much? It has other big-name stars.
It goes back to this idea of a main stage versus the side stage. The WNBA is the sun in the solar system. It's the primary league. Alternative leagues like Unrivaled might benefit from general interest in the short term, but their long-term survival depends on the health of that primary league.
And right now, the narrative of the primary league is Caitlyn Clark.
Exactly. Unrivaled doesn't have Clark. And the data suggests that without a direct link to the main driver of attention, which is Clark and the WNBA ecosystem she's in, it is so hard to sustain that momentum. The source puts it bluntly. Caitlyn Clark didn't just have a good night on NBC. She reminded everyone where the gravity is.
That is heavy. Reminded everyone where the gravity is. It's like she's a celestial body. If you aren't in her orbit, you just freeze.
In a media sense, yes. And for Unrivaled, being out in the cold results in a 44% drop. It shows that the casual fan driving this growth hasn't fully become a women's basketball fan yet. They're a Caitlyn fan or maybe a narrative fan.
That's a really important distinction, the difference between loving the sport and loving the star.
Exactly. Golf saw this with Tiger Woods for decades. When Tiger played, ratings were astronomical. When he didn't, they fell off a cliff. The sport hadn't grown. Interest in the person had grown.
So if we look at this whole picture, we've got the NBC success, proving she can draw eyes just by talking. We have the college game thriving, the WNBA is waiting for her. But then you have this other thing, Unrivaled, that's struggling to find its footing.
It really highlights a risky reality for the sport's whole economy. The source says, right now, all roads in women's basketball still lead back to her.
All roads. I mean, that sounds great for her agent, but is that actually healthy for the sport?
That's the critical question. It raises a huge concern about sustainability. If your entire ecosystem is built around the gravity of one person, that is a remarkably fragile ecosystem.
Because what happens if she, I don't know, gets injured or decides she just likes the broadcast booth better?
Exactly. If the anchor is just one star, you have a single point of failure. The WNBA needs to be the anchor, yes. But right now, the WNBA's anchor is Clark. If that chain breaks, the stability of everything else, endorsements, TV deals, other leagues, it all comes into question.
It's the classic stars and scrubs problem, but for an entire sports economy. The rising tide is supposed to lift all boats, but right now it seems like it's only lifting the ones directly tied to the Caitlyn Clark steamship.
And that Unrivaled number is the proof. You can't just slap the label women's basketball on something and expect it to succeed just because the sport is trendy. The audience is smart. They're following the storyline. And right now, the storyline is Caitlyn.
It's fascinating because it flips the script. We usually think, oh, the sport's growing, so everything will grow. This data suggests it's much more concentrated. It's a winner-take-most market.
It is. The attention flows to specific hubs. And if you're not a hub, you're losing share. It's brutal, but it's efficient.
Which makes that NBC deal even smarter. They realized, we need to tap into the hub, even if it's just for a Knicks game. They didn't try to create a new league. They just put a camera on the person everyone already wants to see.
Smart business. They rented the gravity instead of trying to build their own.
And trending over Hall of Famers. That still gets me. Like, imagine being an absolute legend sitting there and everyone on Twitter is talking about the rookie next to you.
That's the new reality. Celebrity and performance have totally merged. She is the moment. But the warning from the source is clear. Don't mistake the moment for structural stability.
So let's bring this back to you, the listener. Why does this matter if you aren't a die-hard basketball fan?
I think it matters because it's a perfect case study in modern influence. It shows how dependent a media ecosystem can be on a single driver. We see it in tech with one product launch, or in entertainment with one blockbuster franchise.
It's like how the iPhone supports the whole Apple ecosystem. If people stop buying iPhones, the App Store, iCloud, the watches, they all take a hit.
In a way, yes. Clark is the iPhone of women's basketball right now. Essential, dominant, and everything else is an accessory.
And if you're an accessory that isn't compatible, like Unrivaled seems to be, you're in trouble.
You see a 44% drop. That's the market speaking. The market is saying, we want the main product.
Brutal. But also, clarifying, it cuts through the noise and shows you what's actually happening.
It does. It tells us exactly what fans value right now. They value the main stage, and they value the main character.
So as we wrap this up, let's just recap the aha moments here.
Sure. First, the headline, 4.5 million viewers for the NBA on NBC, a number not seen since 2002.
Driven by that perfect storm of nostalgia, LeBron, and the Caitlyn Clark curiosity factor. She didn't do it alone, but she was the accelerant.
Second, the performance. It wasn't a gimmick. NBC and the audience saw a prepared, articulate analyst who absolutely held her own. She has a future in media whenever she wants it.
And third, that stark, uncomfortable contrast. While Clark is breaking records, the alternative league Unrivaled is seeing viewership plummet by 44%.
Which leads to our big takeaway. The gravity of the sport is highly concentrated. The Clark effect is real, but it's specific. It lifts the WNBA and the thing she touches, but it doesn't automatically save everything else. You have to be connected to the power source.
It's a powerful lesson in how media gravity works. It's not a warm blanket that covers everyone. It's a spotlight. And you have to be in the beam.
Perfectly put.
So here's a thought to leave you with. The source warned us that if the WNBA, the anchor, disappeared, everything else collapses. But let's flip that. If the entire sport's stability is currently resting on the shoulders of one singular player, what happens to the parts of the sport that fall outside her orbit?
That's the big question. Can the ecosystem evolve to be self-sustaining, or are we just watching the Caitlyn Clark show featuring basketball?
The source says the WNBA is the anchor. But if the anchor is just one person, that is a lot of weight for one set of shoulders. Something to think about the next time you tune in, or don't tune into a game.
Indeed. Watch the ecosystem, not just the player.
Thanks for diving deep with us today. Pay attention to who you're watching and why. We'll catch you on the next one.
See you then.